That's all right. Hey, good morning. My name is Justin. Are there any kindergartners, first graders, second graders, third graders, fourth graders in here? I don't hear you. Wow, that's amazing. I thought for sure. I think there's some over here. You know, parents, what we thought is, man, you guys haven't spent enough time with your kids this weekend. Want to give just one more hour, all right? Anyway, this weekend is family worship. We do that every weekend after Thanksgiving, and by every weekend, I think this is our second Thanksgiving together, maybe third. We're starting traditions here. So grateful that you guys are with us today, and hopefully today's message is going to be something that you guys as students can apply to your lives as well. If you're a guest with us today, super pumped that you joined us on this beautiful fall day. And the Colts game isn't until 4, so we can all get a nap in until between now and then, which is awesome. One of the things we say around here all the time is Hope City is a place where you can belong before you believe. And so no matter where you come from spiritually, no matter what your church background is, I hope you feel welcome and at home today. And if we can answer any questions for you about our church, love to have you go to Guest Central right after the service, and somebody will be back there to answer those questions. Hey, just one quick announcement that I want to share with you. This Wednesday night, 6:30 p.m., we're doing a worship night. And so it's an hour-long service, going to be an extended time for us to worship. I'm going to be speaking for maybe 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to do my best, all right? And some of you that know me are like, yeah, right. It's going to be an hour. Childcare is going to be provided. But I just thought it would be an awesome time for us just to center ourselves as we head into the month of December and really just spend some time worshiping God. And so the last 2 worship nights that we've done have been phenomenal. And people have emailed, hey, when are we doing another worship night? So I thought doing one more as we go into the end of the year would be awesome. So 6:30 this Wednesday night. We'd love to see you here. You can invite friends. It's going to be just an incredible night of worship together. Well, one of the things that I'm big on during this time of year, and as we go into Christmas, we're going to start our Christmas series next week. You're going to know this about me, is I love traditions. The day after Thanksgiving, typically we go get our Christmas tree, and so we went to Dulles Christmas Tree Farm, along with everyone else in Central Indiana. Was there. There's about 13,000 people there, it felt like. Only waited in line for like 2.5 hours to pay for it. I'm like, I am standing in line to give them money, right? It was unbelievable. But so that's kind of a tradition for us. So the day after Thanksgiving, we want to put up our Christmas tree. And one of the things that I want to do as a church is I want to establish traditions as well. And so Christmas Eve is a big tradition for us here at Hope City. And hope you'll be a part of that. But this Sunday following Thanksgiving, sometimes for churches can be National Youth Pastor Speak Day. So if you think about that, process that, or National Campus Pastor Speaking Day. It's typically, depending on what size of church there is, the senior pastor takes the week off, and because it's kind of a down Sunday. And as we have now had, this is our 3rd Sunday after Thanksgiving, one of the things that I think would be important for us to do is to take time to carry the theme of Thursday into Sunday, and to not move past gratitude and not move past thankfulness, but really to hang out there, because I think what happens so often is as we hit December 1st, all of a sudden we go into overdrive, and we go into panic mode, and we go into stressed out mode, and we have this countdown in our minds of how much time we have to buy Christmas presents, or to do things before Christmas break, or to get things accomplished before we go out of town. And we begin to leak out the thankfulness and the gratitude that we felt in Thanksgiving. And now it's really like even before Halloween, Christmas stuff is out, right? And so, Thanksgiving is kind of this forgotten holiday. And so I just wanted to take an hour today just to continue to process what it means to be grateful, and what it means to live in that moment of, not just a moment of thanksgiving, but a posture of thanksgiving. Because here's what I think is true. Gratitude isn't something that you feel. It's a muscle that you work, right? And so if we're just going to try to feel grateful, then all of a sudden our circumstances are going to start dictating how grateful we actually are. And so what does it look like to work the muscle of gratitude? So this morning I want to look at 2 stories in the book of Luke. One of them is a true story, the other is a parable. And one of them is something that a miracle that Jesus performs. The other is a story that Jesus tells. But each of them are going to demonstrate this juxtaposition of gratitude versus entitlement. Okay, so we're going to look at Luke chapter 17, verses 11 through 19. It says this. Now on his way, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. So we don't have time to go into that, but it's a really important detail because Jewish people hated Samaritans, and Samaritans despised Jews. And so if you read through the Gospels, which is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the New Testament, you see this detail come up quite a bit as people who were traveling with Jesus wrote about the travels of Jesus. And they mentioned Samaria. He had to go through Samaria. He was traveling on the border of Samaria. Like Jesus was always pushing the edge. He was always out in the fringes, out where people who were forgotten or who felt like God was opposed to them lived. And so here he's traveling, and he probably could have gone a different way, but he chooses to go on the border between Samaria and Galilee. Okay, so that's just a little insight. Sometimes I think we can read through these details in Scripture. This is not just a detail, it's demonstrating the heart of Jesus. All right, he wants to be close to those who are far from God. It says this, verse 12, as he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. Now, I've done a message here before on the man who was healed from leprosy. And I've given you guys this background, so I'll give you a little condensed version of it. But leprosy was different than any other disease. It was different from being blind. It was different from being deaf. It was different from being paralyzed because leprosy had a social and a spiritual negativity to it. It had this stigma attached to it that was unlike any other disease. In Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, it talks about how people who have skin diseases have actually been given that disease as a punishment from God. Okay, and so it talks about how people who have this disease can actually find cleansing and find healing, and they can go through this process of going from unclean to clean. And that was the terminology that was used for people who had leprosy. They were considered to be unclean. They were considered to be outcast. They were considered to be forgotten. They did not have any rights or privileges that any other person would have because they had this infectious skin disease that was a spiritual demonstration of God's judgment upon them. That's what the Jewish people believed. And so these lepers would oftentimes live in colonies because this leprosy would attack the skin, and not only would it attack the skin, it would like eat away at the skin, and it would get to the nerve endings on your body. And in the Old Testament, it talks about how people would break clay pots, and they would dig at their skin in relief of the leprosy, in relief of the pain. They were trying to dig out the skin disease with a clay pot. But that wasn't the worst part of leprosy. The physical pain was bad, but the emotional pain was really bad because they were not allowed to be within 50 feet of anybody who did not have leprosy. They would have to live outside of the temple, outside of the city gates. They would set up these leper colonies, and they would all live together basically in their misery. And so they had no physical touch, no affection, no human interaction of any kind. They would wrap themselves up in cloths. They would sit in these leper colonies, and they would just literally rot away. But that was not the worst part of leprosy. Not only did they have this physical pain, not only did they have this emotional and relational isolation, but they had to announce their disease. People who did not have leprosy, they had to tell those who were clean that they were unclean. So there was this spiritual proclamation that I am far from God. I'm beyond hope. I'm outside of the love of God. I'm unclean. And so there was this, physical pain, there was this relational isolation, and then there was this spiritual indictment that they had to continue to tell people, hey, I'm unclean. I'm unclean. And so that's the backdrop by which these 10 guys have lived. We don't know for how long, but they're in a leper colony together, and they come across Jesus, and they say, you know what, we have nothing to lose. And so rather than screaming unclean, they recognize that Jesus may be able to do something about their condition. And so they say, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Take compassion on us. Verse 14, when Jesus saw them, he said, go show yourselves to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. Now, there's a whole sermon in that passage there, as they went. So they actually had to believe him and go. One of them, when he saw he was healed, so there's this, I don't know if it's like this, you can have your mind, kind of imagine this, but so they cry out to Jesus. Jesus is like, hey, go show yourself to the priest. He doesn't touch them. He doesn't say, poof, right? Like abracadabra, there's nothing like there. It's like, hey, go show yourself to the priest. And they believe him. So they just start going to walk to the priest. They have no business going to the priest. Right? They have no indication that their leprosy is going to be healed. They are taking a risk with their lives by placing themselves in proximity with people who don't have leprosy and going even near the temple, near the Holy of Holies. But as they go, they're healed. And so there's this transformation that's taking place as they're walking, and their skin is being revitalized, their skin is being restored, and one of them notices. I'm sure all 10 of them noticed, but one of them did something about it. So as they're walking, one of them said, he came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. That detail is not put there by accident. Luke wants you to know that he was somebody who was far from God. He was somebody that Jewish people despised, and yet Jesus, a Jew, healed him. And Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? So the other 9 must have been Jewish. So this disease was so looked down upon that you set aside your nationality because you had this disease in common. Right? So Jewish people and Samaritans were living together in this leper colony. 9 Jewish people were healed. 1 Samaritan was healed. The Samaritan comes back to say thanks. Then he said to him, rise and go. Your faith has made you well. And he's not talking about he's already healed physically. He's talking about spiritually. So I want you to think about your life. And I think it may be a little skewed this week because you may be kind of a little bit still groggy from all the turkey and stuffing that you ate, right? And all the family time that you had. But just in general, beyond just Thanksgiving week, are you becoming a more grateful person or a less grateful person? Are you becoming a more thankful person or a more cynical person? A more angry person? A more grumbling person? A more selfish person? Here's the truth about me. I don't drift into gratitude. Right? It's not something I wake up and I'm naturally grateful. The older I get, the more skeptical I get. The more cynical I get. The more, I don't think that's going to work out. I don't think they know what they're doing. Right? I'm the more judgmental I get. And I swore that I wouldn't be that way, but I don't know what happens. When you get over 40, it just happens to you, okay? So it's just something that you're predisposed to. It just happens. And gratitude moves down the list of things that I feel. And that's why it's important that we recognize that it's a muscle that we have to work. It's not an emotion that we feel. The greatest enemy to gratitude is entitlement. If entitlement and gratitude can't live in the same human heart. And so if you're not predisposed to gratitude, my guess is, like me, you're predisposed to entitlement. You're predisposed to what people or God owes you. And so Jesus, 2 chapters before this, healing takes place. He tells this story about 2 brothers. And the 2 brothers are very rich. Their father's actually very rich, and they're set up to gain a huge inheritance. And the younger brother, in Luke chapter 15, comes to the father and says, hey, I want my inheritance now. Like, I don't want to wait until you're dead to get my money. I want my inheritance now. In verse 12, it says, a man had 2 sons. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. The first thing entitlement says in your life and my life is, I want it now. If you struggle with entitlement, then you probably think, I want this now. I want the promotion now. I want the house now. I want the car now. I want it now. And traditionally, you receive an inheritance after someone dies, right? This son wants to live as if his father is dead, even though his father is not dead. And for whatever reason, this dad in Jesus' story gives in. He doesn't give any pushback. He says, okay, I'll cash out the 401k. I'll call my accountant. I'll divide my property in 2, and you can have everything that you're owed after I'm dead right now. He gives it to him right then, right now. And you know the story if you've been in church for any length of time. The son goes out, he squanders it, he wastes it, he hires women, he threw big keg parties, he lived a wild life. And what took the father perhaps years or decades to accumulate, this son blows in no time. He just chews right through it. And he's left with nothing. I want it now. The second thing entitlement tells us is you owe me. Not just I want it now, but you owe me. Entitlement's three favorite words actually are you owe me. And in this son's mind, his dad owes him this inheritance. It's in his will, it's tradition, it's something that he deserves. And what's so interesting about my life, and maybe this is true about your life, is the things that I feel entitled to now, I felt grateful for at one time. Right? I'll never forget moving into our very first house. It's a $50,000 house in Kokomo, Indiana. We moved out of an 800 square foot apartment into a 1,200 square foot house that had the garage converted. All right, it was amazing. We had extra room in the garage. Didn't have any heat, no carpet, but we had it had drywall in it, and it still had the garage door pipes or the rails coming through the drywall, and the garage door opener still hung there. So when people came in, they thought we had a projector hanging in our garage. Like, no, that's just the garage door opener, right? Because we threw some carpet down there. We put a space heater in there. Like, we have an extra room. Had orange walls, shag green carpet. We love that thing, right? And then we had our second kid. We're like, oh my gosh, this house is so small, right? And now, if I look back at that house, I'm like, I was so grateful for that house. I feel entitled to more now, right? The things that we're entitled to today, we used to be grateful for at first, but then we just come to expect them. We just come to take them for granted. That God owes us those things. You owe me that in my relationship with you. That was the older brother. If you know the story, the younger brother goes off, he squanders all of the money, he comes back, and the heart of the father has never left. Just because the son blew all the money, it did not change the father's feelings toward the son. And so the father wants to demonstrate compassion and grace and mercy. And so he says, hey, we're having a cookout. We're going to kill the fatted calf. It's barbecue time. Strike up the band, invite all the neighbors over. My son who was dead is now alive again. And the older brother can't take it. He's lived with the father this whole time. He's had every need provided for him. He's never wanted, he's never been asked for anything beyond what his dad, has given him. And he cannot stand the compassion that's demonstrated toward the younger brother. And here's what he says in Luke chapter 15, verse 29. He says to the father, look, all of these years I've been slaving for you, and I've never disobeyed your orders, yet you've never given me even a young goat so I can celebrate with my friends. And I think what happens, if we're just really honest, we get to this place in our relationship with God when we're not working the muscle of gratitude, when we're not looking for things to be thankful for, we start believing that God owes us. That you don't disappoint God like your siblings do. You come to church every Sunday. God owes you at work because you're trying to honor him at work. And look at all these people who aren't, and yet they're getting ahead. God, don't you understand? I'm trying to date the way that you tell me to date, and look at all of my friends. They're getting married, and they have no regard for following you in their dating life. What gives? Like, you owe me, God. And so what happens so often in our Christian life is we can move from becoming sons and daughters of God to dutiful soldiers. Where we're just going through the motions, trying to earn God's favor, and then telling God back, look at all that I'm doing for you, so you better come through for me. And when we live that way, gratitude just gets squeezed out of our heart, out of our life. Someone owes me. I deserve better than this. I deserve more. And so the first step in overcoming entitlement is actually admitting that you struggle with it. I know that might sound shocking to you, and some of you are like, yeah, my husband, he really struggles with that. I hope you're listening, right? But I think all of us struggle with it. So I'm gonna put up some categories. I'm just gonna have you do a little inventory of your own heart. The first area of entitlement that many of us struggle with is material and financial. If you have Google, and you open up your Google Calendar, and you go to Friday, November 23rd, there's going to be a holiday on there that was not on there last year. Black Friday. Black Friday is the same color as Christmas. It's the same color as Thanksgiving. It's the same color as Easter on your Google Calendar. Somebody at Google just decided Black Friday is a national holiday, all right? That's just something that happened this year. I opened up my Google account, I'm like, how can I do it? Says, okay, do you not want to view holidays? I'm like, I just can't take away Black Friday. I don't want Black Friday on my calendar as a national holiday. It's not equal to Christmas, right? It's not equal to Thanksgiving. It's not equal. That's not right. But it's somebody in our culture thinks, Black Friday, we all deserve Black Friday, so it's going to be a national holiday. And I think what happens is we get fed these messages, I don't have enough, I don't have what's good enough, I need a bigger TV, I need a nicer TV, I need the 4K, I need, my Xbox is like 2013's model, I need a new Xbox. Like we have all of these messages that are coming to us of how much we deserve and how much more we need and how we need to upgrade this and get the new that. And I fall into that. Like there's very rarely is an iPhone out longer than 3 days before I have it, okay? I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, it's not even I deserve it, I just want it, okay? And I don't think I struggle with entitlement, maybe I do, but I just want it, right? And so we can get into this place where we start viewing God owing us monetarily or financially. I don't know if you guys have done this before. I did this actually yesterday. I took my dry cleaning in on like Tuesday or Wednesday. Well, then with the holiday, I forgot all about it. And so it's like 6 o'clock last night. And I go into my closet and there's literally a rack of clothes hanging there. But the 7 things that I do actually wear are not there. All right? And so I said to Isaiah, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to go to this is not new, but I said, I'm going to have to go buy something new. I have nothing to wear. And I'm saying it as I'm looking at a closet full of clothes, right? Have you ever done this? Like you're standing there like this. And there's just literally clothes as far as your eye can see in this little room. It's a walk-in closet too, right? So that gives you an indication of how big it is, right? It's not like our grandparents used to have wardrobes, right? There's 2 little doors that opened up, boom, there's your clothes. I have a walk-in closet, right? And if I'm just being honest with you, I have more clothes than my wife, okay? I do, and more shoes, okay? And I'm standing there looking at them like, I have nothing to wear. Right? Like there was a point where I actually thought I was going to have to go to the store last night and buy new clothes because I had nothing to wear, even though I had clothes in my closet that I just don't wear. Right? They're just not good enough. Think about that. I don't like my car. My car's 3 years old. My car is 5 years old. I don't have heated seats. I can't plug in my iPhone. And so we go into debt to buy things that we don't actually need to impress people we don't even like. Right? I really wish I had more money. I wish I had a better job. I really wish I could provide more for my kids. I wish we had a nicer house. I wish we could take better vacations. The list goes on and on and on. Here's what I want you to know. Contentment is not a feeling you achieve. Contentment is a decision that we make. And I think what happens so often is we think, okay, once I have this, then I will be content. And if that's how we live our life, we're always going to be chasing it. Contentment is a decision that you make. And I have a friend of mine that is uber rich. I mean, he's a millionaire. And he has chosen to cap his salary at a certain level because he doesn't want to feel uber rich. And you might be saying, well, that's easy for him to do. He has money in the bank. He didn't get there by waiting until he felt it. Right? He made a decision. I'm going to be content with what I have right now. And depending on where you are in life, the people that I have found that struggle with this the most are the people that have the most. People who have little don't necessarily struggle with contentment. They just choose it. So then there's relational entitlement. It could be that you're sick and tired of your parents being in your business. It could be that you want my husband, I wish he didn't work as much. I wish he was home more. I wish he had a better job. I wish he was a better spiritual leader. I wish he could fix things around the house. He just doesn't do those things. My wife, I wish she was more fun. I wish she was, more romantically involved. I wish she cooked more. I wish she spent as much time with me as she does with her friends. I wish she had a better paying job. Whatever she is, she's not enough of what I think she should be. I'm not happy because I don't have a girlfriend. I wish I had the boyfriend that everybody else has. I wish my boyfriend had a job. My friends, I really don't have friends that love me like that person that I follow on social media. Her friends love her and they take her out and they surprise her and they lavish her with gifts, and my friends don't love me like that. And we can just go on and on and on of comparing our relational life to the relational life of other people and feeling so entitled and so discontent. Maybe it's in our vocation. One of the easiest places I think it is to feel entitled is in our vocation. It's easy to lose gratitude, take our jobs for granted. My boss doesn't understand me. My coworkers don't listen to me. They don't pay us what we're worth. And rather than going to work each day with a sense of thankfulness that we actually have a job, we go to work resentful that we have to work. Maybe it's circumstantial. I don't like my house. I don't like my class schedule. I don't like the season I'm in. I don't like my son's teacher. I don't like my daughter's coach. I don't like my hair or my lack of hair. I don't get any of the breaks that I deserve. On Tuesday of this last week, our staff got to take the baskets that you guys provided down to Urban Act Academy. And it was real sobering to do that. And it was amazing. So I don't know if you guys saw this on social media, but Nigina, the director or the headmaster of Urban Act Academy, she was here a few weeks ago and kind of shared her vision with the school. She has 3 years to turn that school around. It was an IPS school that became a charter school. And this year is her baseline year. And so she said the first day of school, she got kicked in the face by a first grader. And so there's just 8% of the students there are proficient in reading. 8%. And so she just has this huge task. She's in a really low-income neighborhood. 5 of the 6 homeless shelters are in her school district. And so most of her kids are in foster care, coming out of foster care, in safe families, coming out of safe families, in homeless shelters, coming out of homeless shelters. There's 300 students there, kindergarten through 8th grade. And so we got to go down and we got to deliver our goal was 25. You guys provided 54. I don't know if I've got a picture there. And that's not all of them. But what you can't see is the ones with the purple. So we brought 54 baskets down. And she told that story to her board of directors. And they said, well, we don't want to be outdone by a church in Carmel. And so her board of directors brought an additional 30 baskets. And so there were 84 families that got Thanksgiving dinner because of your generosity. And so we got to deliver those. And as we were walking in, they had a bunch of their staff that was out there helping us carry it in. And so I was bringing a basket in, but I had my foot standing there holding the door as people were carrying in baskets. And there was a guy that was arriving on his cell phone. And I don't know who he was talking to, but I just heard him say, hey, I'm at the school right now. We're going to have Thanksgiving dinner. I'm picking up a basket from the school. I'm picking up a basket of food. And it was just this realization that in 45 years, I've never wondered if I was going to have Thanksgiving dinner. Not one time. I grew up extremely poor. Most of the time when I was young, we were on food stamps or assisted living in some way. So I grew up extremely poor, but I never didn't think we weren't going to have Thanksgiving. And so then I started thinking, man, am I even grateful for the food that I have? Do I take time to thank God for the little things that I've given? And gratitude isn't, well, I'm so grateful that I'm more well off than that person, right? Gratitude isn't an indictment on someone else's poverty. It's noticing the little things that go unnoticed in our hearts and lives that we should be grateful for. And I guarantee you that if you start working that muscle, the circumstances that you're in right now will seem a lot less frustrating. Feelings of gratitude always follow the decision to be grateful. Feelings of gratitude always follow the decision to be grateful. When Trish and I were in college, we got married the summer before my last year of college, and I had an elective that I had to take for graduation, and so we were looking through the things. I'm looking for cupcake. Like I just want an easy class, right? Like 101 is what I was looking for. Just need an elective. And I don't know why, but we chose to take this methods of marriage enrichment. Okay, so it was like a counseling elective, and it taught you how to help people experience enrichment in their marriage. And it was taught by this elderly couple, Patsy, Trish, you remember their names? No, okay. Anyway, it's been a long time. Robert and Patsy somebody. Anyway, so it's on Monday nights. Trish and I take this class together. And it was very interesting. It was basically slice and dice us as a newlywed couple. Like, here's all the things you're doing wrong your first 3 months of marriage, basically is what it was. And so it taught you how to fight fair. It taught you how to, process people as they go through the counseling process. It taught you how to, listen to, not to respond, but listen to understand, blah, 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 right? And so all the important things that you need to know in a relationship. But one of the things that I took away from that class that I'll never forget, that I've said over and over again in my own life, and I've said it to couples as I've counseled, is right feelings always follow right actions. Like, even if you don't feel like doing something in your relationship, do it anyway. The feelings will follow. If you wait until you feel like doing the right thing, you're not going to do the right thing. Right behavior does not follow feelings. Right feelings follow right behavior. And the same is true in the area of gratitude. Even when you don't feel like being grateful, be grateful anyway, and the feelings will catch up. Right? The feeling of gratitude always follows the decision to be grateful. And here's the truth. Unspoken gratitude is unexpressed gratitude. Look at verse 17 of Luke 17. Jesus asks, were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Now, he heals 10 guys, right? Were the other 9 not grateful? I don't think, I'm not going to put an indictment on their heart. I think they were probably extremely grateful. They probably were like, oh my gosh, I got to get home and tell my wife. I got to go home and I got to go find my family, right? They probably hadn't seen their family in years. They were probably so overcome with emotion, they did not think to go back and be grateful. But just because they were feeling grateful, they didn't express it, so Jesus didn't receive it. And you might have people in your life right now that you feel extremely grateful for. You just don't tell them. You just never say it. You just never take the time. You think to yourself, well, they know I appreciate them. They know I'm grateful for them. Silent gratitude is of no use to anybody. And so when's the last time you've actually said, I'm thankful for you. I appreciate you. I'm thankful for what you do. I'm thankful for the way that you serve around the house. I'm thankful for how hard you work. I'm thankful for the way that you love me. I'm thankful for the grace that you extend me. When's the last time you said to your kids, I'm proud of you, I'm thankful for you, I appreciate you? When's the last time you told your wife that you were grateful for her? When's the last time you told your friend how much you appreciate them? So here's the question I want to leave with you as we go into the close of our service today. Will you be the one? Will you be the one? Look at verse 15. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. 10 were begging. 10 had no hope. 10 were in deep distress. 10 were lepers that were banished outside of community. All 10 were healed. One person came back to say thank you. Will you be that one person? The odds are stacked against you, because we don't drift into gratitude. Will you be the one that daily pauses to give God glory and honor for the breath that you breathe and the life that you have? Even if it's a life that's hard right now, even if you're in circumstances that you did not choose, you still have breath and life and grace and mercy. Will you take time just to be grateful for that? Would be the one to give worship and glory to the one that saw you as you were far away from God, and you had squandered everything, and you had messed up your life, and you didn't have a father that sat in judgment of you. You have a heavenly Father that ran to you, and he threw his arms around you, and he welcomed you home. That's grace. That's second chances. It's mercy. It's something to be grateful for. Will you be the one? Not just with God, but with the people that impact you in your life. Will you be the one that stops long enough to write a thank you note, to express your gratitude to somebody that you appreciate in your life? To say thank you to a friend. To say thank you to the people that invest in your kids every week in Hope City Kids. To thank somebody, a coach, a teacher, a connection group leader, your mom or your dad, your boss, your spouse. Just to write a simple note of thanks and say, I felt this for a long time. I want to express it. So here's what we're going to do as we close today. Those of you that have been here for the last couple weeks, you know that we talked the month of October about generosity and how generosity helps us overcome entitlement. Generosity is this tool that we can use to remind ourselves of being grateful. And so there's these commitment cards. If you don't have one, we ask you guys to make a commitment for 2019 if you call this place your home, and help us know where we're going to stand in 2019 by just sharing with us what you maybe anticipate giving next year. It can be completely anonymous. So if you brought that or you're ready to turn that in, there's this basket or this box right here. You can just put that right there. Over here, this station is communion. And it's really just taking time, right? Just like we celebrated Thanksgiving around a table, it's taking time to be around a table with Jesus. And on the night he was betrayed, he gathered his disciples together and they broke bread. And they shared a meal, and he said, hey, this bread that it's breaking right now is my body. It's broken for you. And this cup that we're drinking, it symbolizes my blood, which is getting ready to be shed for you. And as long as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim my death until I return again. It's just taking time to be grateful for the sacrifice that Jesus made for us. Over here to my left, to your right, is a station of thank you notes. There's just thank you notes there that you can just take some time to write out to somebody what you're grateful to them for. It's giving you space and time, not just to leave here and go, yeah, that was a good one. Thanksgiving, I'll be grateful more. Who can you write a thank you note to this morning? Unspoken gratitude is unexpressed gratitude. And then finally, back over here with the lights around the wall is just sticky notes, just a Post-it note and a card where you can just write a note to God, something that you're thankful to God for. There's clothespins where you can just clip those on there and just create a wall, like an Ebenezer is what it was called in the Old Testament. It's just this kind of a monument of thanksgiving, just remembering all that we have to be thankful for. And so we're just going to give you some time. I'm going to pray. The band's going to lead us in some worship. And we're just going to give you freedom to move to any of these stations at your leisure. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes, so you don't have to rush through anything. You can just spend some time demonstrating gratitude and demonstrating thanksgiving. Let's pray together.